All right, Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, this is actually a huge deal that I wanted to break down for you. So workers at 3 Starbucks in Buffalo are starting to vote on whether or not they want to join a union, and the execs at that company appear to be in full meltdown mode. You're going to love this. So here is the very latest. Vote by mail is beginning this week in an election that would see Buffalo stores organized under Workers United, that's an affiliate of the Service Employees International Union, or SEIU. The fact that the voting is starting is already a huge win for pro-union forces. Starbucks had sought to delay the election, and that is an effective union-busting tactic in the service sector in particular because of their inherent high turnover. If you can push an election off long enough, some of the original organizers might move on, and new employees will be brought in who have to be educated on unionization from scratch. In their attempt to defeat the union, Starbucks also sought to expand the election to include all Starbucks in the Buffalo area, not just the 3 that originally filed. This also makes it harder for workers to unionize because they've got to organize a larger pool of workers who haven't been invested in the conversation from the start. So far, the National Labor Relations Board has sided with the union. They have kept each of the Starbucks stores separate. That means if a majority of workers at even one location vote in favor of the union, that shop will in fact become union. And so how is Starbucks handling all this? Are they taking it in stride, confident in their business model and huge profit margins, happy to live up to their rhetoric about supporting and backing their workforce? Of course not. They are freaking out in totally hilarious ways. So last weekend, they closed all the Starbucks locations in Buffalo early on Saturday, and they invited workers to a big fancy event at the Hyatt. The invitation touted a secret special guest who turned out to be none other than Starbucks founder Howard Schultz. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend their Saturday night hanging out with the billionaire desperately trying to keep you from having power in your workplace? In addition to all the standard anti-union talking points about how wonderful the company already is and how committed they are to supporting their workers, Schultz also apparently wandered into a pretty bizarre Holocaust analogy. Throw that up on the screen. So some workers who attended Mr. Schultz's talk were confused by a story he told about the Holocaust, in which he noted that only a small portion of prisoners in German concentration camps received blankets, but often shared them with fellow prisoners. So much of that story is threaded into what we have tried to do at Starbucks. Share our blanket, Mr. Schultz said, according to the transcript. Okay. Gathering all your employees for a good old-fashioned union-busting meeting is just like Holocaust victims sharing blankets with their fellow prisoners or something. Or maybe the workers trying to stand with each other in solidarity against oppressive corporate bosses are more effectively channeling the spirit of those prisoners. Or maybe we should just leave the Nazi Holocaust analogies out of this altogether. Anyways, Starbucks is not wrong to be nervous about this effort. This thing actually looks like it has some chance of success. Listen, you've always got to assume the corporates are going to win, and Starbucks has used extraordinary tactics to try and prevent unionization. But the time could hardly be more ripe. As we've been covering, workers everywhere are rediscovering and flexing their muscle in a variety of different ways. You've got huge strikes at John Deere and likely Kaiser. You've got small-scale walkouts where the entire staff of a restaurant or a chain store just quit en masse and lock the door behind them, telling their bosses exactly what they think of them in the meanwhile. To the record-breaking numbers who are quitting on their own and jumping industries, that backdrop of renewed worker power gives these Starbucks baristas looking to organize a little bit of wind at their backs. Not only that, but the effort does seem outwardly to have some momentum. 3 additional shops have now filed petitions to unionize. You add that to an actually worker-friendly NLRB that has so far taken the union side, and I am almost ready to allow myself a tiny glimmer of hope that at least one of the Buffalo Starbucks may in fact win a union. But just remember, our laws are so screwed up that even if they do unionize and it survives all of the inevitable appeals and challenges, still nothing is guaranteed. More than half of workers who join a union still do not have a collectively bargained contract a year later. Some companies, they just skip any pretense at negotiations and resort to blatantly illegal tactics, things like firings and closing shops in retaliation. For one example, Dollar General just outright closed a Missouri store that had voted to unionize. Our laws are so toothless that companies routinely get away with this kind of criminal behavior. Now, the PRO Act would give the NLRB some teeth, and it would also force companies and workers into binding arbitration if a deal cannot be reached, killing that stalling tactic. But Kirsten Sinema decided we can't have the PRO Act because she needs to take a raft of cash from barely legal pyramid schemes, otherwise known as MLMs. Now, these workers cannot count on Washington. And that's where we come in, guys. If these workers take the courageous step of voting to unionize, we have to have their backs, making sure we raise hell if the company does try to screw them over. For the first time in my entire life, the labor movement is actually starting to go on the offense. We got to make sure that we are watching. Sire, it's pretty interesting. So far, NLRB is siding with them, and the reason Starbucks is so— Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.